Welcome to Garage Gym Athlete Ask Me Anything. It's pretty simple. I'll be answering questions from the thousands of athletes that follow our daily programming. If you have a question or topic you want submitted, go to garagegymathlete.com/AMA. Let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
Hi.
What's funny, so I don't actually know when this is going to be published. And you're actually kind of responsible for that, so you can pick whenever you want it to be published. But Joe doesn't have a beard anymore. And this might be
almost perfect timing.
Might be old news because in the main, like the longer weekly podcast, I'm definitely going to mention it. And that one has to be published when it has to be published. But you won't see it.
I think this will only be a week behind.
This will be when people see it, at least. So if you are listening, Joe, I guess you got a haircut too. I don't even remember your hair. All I ever looked at was your beard.
It was, I got a big haircut came before the beard. That was more important.
Yeah, so he's clean shaven. Took about
very well groomed finally.
10 years off of your appearance there.
It really felt like it as I was doing it. It was ridiculous.
Well, welcome back to normal Joe. Relatively so.
Relative.
Well, that means good things are coming, right? So
very much so.
Awesome.
So that's for the GGA podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
But that's for the Monday episodes.
Jumping ahead here. We'll get into the question. I kind of mentioned this on a podcast already, but I wanted to talk about it more EO3 specific and not just research. So in the I'll read Victor's question first. So this is Victor, and the question is, I get that deload weeks are important to training. However, is there any science behind how frequently they should be done? In our GGA training, for example, it's every 4 weeks. Is this based on some literature or simply convenience? Thanks. And I did mention, if you guys listened to the Muscle Types podcast, I briefly mentioned how there was a study talking about how deload weeks are beneficial for both slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers. It's like kind of the recovery process. And so there is research, but I don't think that, you could look this up and find a lot of conflicting research is my answer to his, is there research, into this, any science behind it? And there is, and that's what, when you look at serious athletes, and we're talking about, professional athletes, there's always some sort of taper or deload before training or competition, because you just don't want to be hitting it up like, heavily hitting the CNS and like all of these like heavy weights and all this stuff before you have an upcoming event. And so it makes a lot of sense in the professional athlete world. But why do we do it? And, I took this a lot from, to be honest, our training methodology. One of the big influences on me early on was Louis Simmons, Westside Barbell. Now he is primarily powerlifting, but he just works in these 3 week waves for his volume and programming. And I always thought it was a good idea. And then, I've seen the athletes that never do a deload, and never deloading is great when you only want to train for like 6 months, maybe a year. And then you feel like getting really burnt out and then getting hurt and then starting that whole process over and over again. But you need to deload more frequently. And I have more to say about it, but I want to get your thoughts on deloads in general, Joe.
So when you're bringing up professional sports and things like that, my first thought was, if you've been really into a sport, whether it's collegiate athlete, professional, or even just you have your main goal of your sport, typically you have your off-season programming and your in-season programming.
Right.
And the in-season program is kind of going to be a deload-esque, because you're doing sort of practice skills, things that are specifically for your sport, and then any supplemental training is going to be somewhat of deload. But out of season training is going to be much more vigorous, because you're building up to what you're going to be stressful for your in-season. For us, I wasn't sure about the timeline wise. I'm just been so used to doing it every 4 weeks. I think I've seen people do it 6 weeks, which is about right. And it's definitely much more on the lower intensity scale.
Yeah, and so I'll talk about why we selected the time frame that we did. So in our coaching program, we teach coaches two different things. We teach them how to program, in a very awesome way, but then we also teach what we call the human element. And that is the big reason why we do 3 weeks hard, 1 week easier. And if you've been around GGA for a while, you know that deload weeks are not always like a walk in the park. Sometimes it's just different and challenging in a different way. And I'm taking all of that into account when we program these things. But this human element side is, I feel like if you have a known, like, hey, I need to try hard, I need to push hard for 3 weeks, and then I get a break, mentally, that's a lot better place to be. And so that's why a big reason we've selected it. Yeah, I did have some influence from different coaches that set it up the similar way. And these coaches were seeing results at really high level. And I'm like, why not mimic what the best are doing, the best in the world are doing? But at the same time, the reason I like it where it is, because we could go 5 weeks on, 1 week off. We could do, and it wouldn't change it, to be honest. Like he mentions, like, is it just for convenience? Like, there's nothing convenient about programming a deload week. I mean, it doesn't help us at all. It's all programming, right? Like, we have to program every week of the year, no matter what. So deload weeks, to be honest, I don't even know what the convenience portion is there. It's just not convenient for us. We really only do it for the human element side of knowing. And I know I'm the same way. Like, if I have to hit something harder for a certain amount of time, and then I know I'm going to get to back off, it just keeps me a little bit fresher mentally. And then you come back at the end of a deload week, if it wasn't that challenging for you, ready to just like crush another 3 week wave, right? So that's a big reason we do it. Now getting into like how we actually do it and why we have structured the deload weeks the way we've structured them. Now, you would have had to watch one of our Garage Gym Athlete webinars. I don't know, this is like 2 or 3 ago when I talked about body geometry and how that fits in. So body geometry for us, and you could Google body geometry into 3 Fitness and read an entire article about our body geometry thing. But we're really trying to make sure that all planes of movement are hit in our programming. All the different muscle contractions, all the different energy systems. We're just thinking about a lot of different things when we program specifically in body geometry. Body geometry is our most complex programming because there's so many things that we're trying to balance. And we didn't want to do body geometry in perpetuity. It's just athletes would get bored. Like I said, it's complex for programming. But it's really beneficial because when we are making sure that there is absolutely no gaps in your training, like I said, you're hitting all the different muscle contractions, all the different planes of movement, all the different energy systems, you're doing these things over and over again, we're really balancing you out. And the goal of our body geometry system is to keep athletes healthy, safe, and optimal. That's the entire theory behind body geometry. So we're doing a body geometry cycle, our week, every 4th week. And so they're not throwaway weeks is the big thing I want all the Garage Gym athletes to know. Like, some people's deload weeks are, and we used to do this, like, to be honest, we would program, but everything would just get cut to 50% volume or 50% intensity. And we would do that. We'd either do a volume deload or we'd do an intensity deload on that 4th week. And that I didn't like the structure because it almost, a lot of athletes kind of treated it as this throwaway week, like whatever. And so moving it to body geometry now, where it's a part of a bigger annual plan to where we're making sure that you're getting really balanced out every 4th week, it's going to help you stay in the game longer. And it's kind of like if all you like to do is train, and then I'm like, hey, you need to go do some mobility work too. And you're like, well, I don't like mobility work. It's like, that's okay, but you got to do it, right? And that's how body geometry is. It's like, it's not the same programming that you've been following for the last 3 weeks, but it's going to help you stay in the game longer. And so that's how we're doing it at Garage Gym Athlete with our deload weeks.
Yeah, it can definitely be very refreshing. Another reason why I think we do it is, so it's pretty typical to have programs cycles be about 12 weeks, and that's what ours are, 12 weeks. So every 4 weeks, doing our deload every 4 weeks now breaks it up into 3 1-month segments, 3 waves. And I think that helps people get through to be like, okay, instead of looking at starting a program going, oh my God, I have to do this, after 2 or 3 weeks, you're like, man, I still have X amount of weeks, 8, 9 weeks of this left. But instead you can look at it in 1-month increments, be like, oh, yeah, cool. Week 3, next week's deload. Awesome. And then by the end of your deload week, people are ready to get after the next month. So it helps manageable goals to be smaller and then still hitting the overall entire cycle at full ability, full peak.
Yeah, and it helps us bring people into the program without massive missing pieces. And this isn't a big reason we did it. Like I already mentioned, the reasons we have deload weeks and the reasons behind those. But if you wanted to join Garage Gym Athlete Training and you come in at week 8 of a 12-week program and we had no deloads, you're just going to feel like you're 8 weeks behind, right? You're just going to be like, what am I doing here? But you can really jump in almost at any point and know that there's a reset coming for every athlete, and it's okay. It's okay to jump in whenever you want to jump in.
Yep.
All right, Victor, that's why we do deload weeks. Hopefully that answers your question. It's way a little bit less science. Like there are studies on it for sure. You could pull those up if you're interested in any of the NSCA literature for like CSCS or TSAC-F. You can check those things out. I mean, there are a lot of science behind it and just research on people who've done it. But to be honest, that's not a major reason we do it. We do it for that human element, keeping athletes in the game mentally, and also based off of really successful coaches who've had a lot of have produced a lot of results following a similar model. So that's why we do it. But that is it for this Garage Gym Athlete Ask Me Anything. If you have a question, go to garagegymathlete.com/AMA, submit your question, and we will get to it. And also, if you like this podcast and you're listening, give us a 5-star review, positive comment. If you're on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe to the channel where you can see Joe's shaven face.
Brand new. It's like a brand new person in here. You gotta switch it up.
But that's it. Thanks for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed today's Ask Me Anything episode. So one more time, if you want to submit a question, topic, or idea, you can do so at garagegymathlete.com/AMA. And hey, while you're there, if you haven't already, sign up for Garage Gym Athlete membership. We are the best community and programming on the internet. I dare you to try and prove me wrong.